SigTalks, Episode 007, 10 Hours with Sigafoose, A Lifetime with Patsy.
Hello, and welcome to SigTalks with your host, Dr. Carrie Sigafoose, your home for the chiropractic philosophy, where we discuss the teachings of Dr. James Sigafoose, from his writings to his talks and his many audio presentations.
Hello, today's a little exciting for me. We're actually going to be reviewing probably one of my father's most infamous audio series, 10 Hours with Sigafoose. And when we're done, I will have my first guest, which is my mother, Patsy Sigafoose, and we'll be discussing the clip as well as the whole audio series. So sit back, take a listen, and me and my mother will see you on the other side.
Let me ask you a question. I know what the answer is already, but I'll ask anyway, just for the heck of it. How many of us here, in fact, it said handle new patients. I think before we can handle them, we have to get them. So how many of you get enough new patients? What'd you say? One. Just one here. Well, I think what we need to do, we should look at what our job is. Sometimes I think we don't really know what we're supposed to do. Some of us get caught up in things that are contrary to what we're really supposed to be doing, so we don't end up with the end product, the final product. And the final product of our relationship should be an office full of people, having those people understand what they came in for, and having them understand what we do and what we don't do. And I'm not too sure we cover that. I think sometimes we sort of bypass that, or we're afraid to look at it, or we're afraid to confront the patient with what we are supposed to do and what we don't do. So along the lines, we have people that come in and they're not certain what you're going to do when they get there. They're really not certain why they're there. And then over a period of time, they begin to fall off, or they fail to refer, or there's not a good communication. Something is going haywire, and so we just don't keep our people. So let's do this. Let's take this hour and 20 minutes, or whatever we have. Let's talk briefly about getting patients. Let's get our office full first. Then we'll be concerned how to keep them. I don't see any point in talking to you how to keep something that not necessarily are we getting enough of. So we're going to cover how to get them in here. Let's fill the place up. Let's fill the office up with new ones. Then after we've gotten it, then we'll talk about keeping them. We're going to talk about keeping people based on our relationship, not theirs. We're going to talk about converting people to what we do, not what they think we should do. And we're going to talk about communicating, which is something that many of us fail to be able to do. So many people are lousy communicators. So in the process, when we finish with this hour, then we're going to be ready for the next hour. The next hour will be something a little different. So let's get on with it. How do we get new patients? I would say, what do we do? Some of us say, well, we have strictly a referral practice. That's fine. How do we get referrals? If, in fact, we come in we don't exist, we come into a new office, how do we get people in there? If we're in there for a long period of time, how do we maintain new patients if we're not strong on referrals? Well, my thing is this. I think we should advertise. Now, there's a lot of people that don't think so. But, you know, B.J. said at one time, the people that don't believe in advertising generally advertise their business for sale next year. And so I think we need to start marketing ourselves, and marketing ourselves to the degree that it allows people to get pictures of themselves being associated with you in chiropractic, so that they come in. And I believe in hard sell. I don't believe in soft sell. I think if we're going to sell our services and sell chiropractic and sell the concept of chiropractic, I want it to be hard sell. I want you to look at it and I want you to act on it. I don't want to sort of filter it in your little head so that in the next year, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10, you're going to decide that you're going to come to me, maybe. I don't want that. I want to put a picture out right now that you sit there and you say, good God, that sounds like me, I'm going. And there he is the next day. That's the way it should be. So, one of the media that we use is television. Now, that's something that many people have shied away from. But television covers many, many, many people. And there are types of ads that you can put on television that bring in a lot of people. So, we average somewhere around 20 new people a week, just off of television. So when we're bringing in 20 people a week off of television, and that includes 6 offices, so you're talking about 120 people a week coming in. Now, that's a lot of people, so there's something right being done. And the right thing is that the market that goes out is hitting the people between the eyes so that they can see themselves and they come. Look at all the Baptists sitting back there. They all sit in the back. Now, I see you sitting way back there in the corner. But once we get them in, here's another thing. How many people here give what I call orientations? You see, there are things called spinal care classes. And Jay brought this up to me the other day. Some people call their classes spinal care classes. I've never called mine spinal care class. I call it orientation. Now, I thought maybe it was a play on words, but he had something different to add. So how many people here have orientations? Not many. How many have spinal care classes? The same people. So apparently it's the same thing to you. Well, now, here's the deal. If we have a spinal care class to me means that we show people how to take care of their spine. How to lift, how to hop, how to skip, how to sit, how to sleep, how to jump. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But now I want to ask you, what is an orientation? Well, an orientation to me is bringing somebody in and orienting them to what I do, because they don't know what it is that I do. They don't know what my responsibility is, and they don't know what theirs is. So I have to orient. Now, if in fact I do a proper orientation, and I have maybe 30 or 35 people, after I do the orientation, this is the time that I'm going to ask for referrals. So we should be picking up maybe 20 to 25 referrals from each orientation. Are you doing that? Well, everybody's shaking their head no. Now my question is why? So now I come back around, what is the purpose of the orientation? What do you do that for? Really? Now, are you entertaining the people? Is it something that you do because somebody told you to do it? Why are you doing it? What's the purpose behind it? Let's cover that. Let's go into that thing. And then I want to go into to report. I'll tell you why. I just went into an office that increased 750 visits in 1 month. How many of you have done that? And I'm going to tell you how I did it. I'll go through that today, step by step. And there's no reason why you can't do it. And how I did that was simply get down into the fundamentals, plug in what we're doing, what we're not doing, get rid of all the incidentals, get rid of about half of the forms and about half the half-cocked ideas, and just get down into the central thing. The central thing, you see I'm dressed like Colonel Sanders. Colonel Sanders thought about chicken. That's it. He didn't get into hamburgers. He didn't get into anything. He goes into chicken. He made millions of dollars. What we have to do is get into chiropractic. And we have to stay in chiropractic and the fundamentals and the absolution of chiropractic and give that to the people. And the people are sitting out here saying, when is anybody going to tell me about chiropractic? I've been looking for it for 500 years. And then somebody finally tells him and we change it. Now, how do we do that? All right, here comes John Smith. Anybody's coming in. What we have to do, number one, is have a consultation. Do we not? I mean, we should have. And now, a consultation to me is one thing. A consultation to you might be something else. But to me, a consultation is courtship. I'm going to court this person. They're coming into me, and they're coming in with some kind of idea, and they're really going to try to sell me on their idea. They're going to try to sell me on what's wrong with them, sell me on what I should do, sell me on what everybody else did, sell me on what their grandmother did, and sell me on how their husband feels. And I'm not interested in that. So therefore, I can't let them sell me anything. So if I'm going to have some kind of consultation, if I'm going to court this person, supposing I'm going to court, my daughter is being courted now. I don't like the idea, but she is. But the courtship has to be, she has to let him know what his limits are and where he stands. He in turn has to do the same thing with her. If now they can get together, then the next thing they could possibly do is marry. So let's bring this up. If I come into you and I have a set of symptoms, and I have a set of sicknesses, and I have a set of whatever I've got, and we get involved in this thing, and I sit in here and I let you sell me all of your symptoms and all your sicknesses, but at no time did I tell you what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do, what's in your head? Why did you come to me in the first place? You came to me because you had a symptom, did you not? And so when you came in with a symptom, your idea was, I have a symptom, I'm going to this doctor to get rid of my symptom. Right? And so I listen to your symptoms and I let you in on the basis that I'm going to handle your symptom. And now if I do that, if I simply bring you in based on the fact that you have a symptom, now I'm going to ask you another question. When is the first time? Does anybody here have people that come with them and stay with them forever? Jay does. Do you have people that simply walk in off the street and say, here I am, I'll do whatever you want, I'm ready to stay for the next 2 or 3 years? Do you have that? I've never had it, so if you have it, I'm coming up to your place. They come into you with symptoms. They have a certain set of ideas that they want you to do. Now, do you ever sit down and say, these are the things I do, and these are the things I don't do? Have you ever done that? Well, I want you to try it. If you've never done it, you're going to have a lot of fun with it. Because supposing Mary comes in, and Mary sits down here, and she gives you 42 symptoms. And God forbid, if they're talking to you about their symptoms, let's do one thing today is stop doing that. Let's let your girls get the symptoms. Let the girl take the history. And when she gets sick and throws up from it, you can send her home. But if you get sick from it, you've got to stay there. And if you listen to 10 or 15 people sitting into you every day telling you all their problems, all their sicknesses, how their grandmother had the same thing, and her great-grandmother died from it, and do you know now that the dog's got it? And you listen to that 15 times a day, at the end of the day, you're sick yourself. You don't want to see anybody, you don't want to hear anything. You've lost something. So don't listen to it. Somebody has to listen to it, but that's why you pay your girls. Let them do it. Then you can put them in R&R sections. But after they've dumped all of that stuff out, everything is out, they're aware of the fact that you know what they came in for. Now what's the next step? The next step is to determine what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. So what do I do? As a chiropractor, what's my job? To treat symptoms? No, I'm going to tell you what I tell them. Now some of you will like it, some of you won't, some of you pass out, some of you have already done that. It doesn't make any difference. I'm going to let you know that I tell people I don't treat symptoms. I'm going to let you know right up front that as a chiropractor, I'm not treating your symptom. I'm not going to be getting into your disease process, that I have one job to do and one job only, and that's chiropractic, and this is what chiropractic is. And so we tell them what chiropractic is, and we use all the charts that you can get at Share. And we put up the subluxation, and we put that thing up, we put up the nerve chart, and we show them what a subluxation is. We explain to them what a subluxation does. We explain to them how it affects them locally and systemically. We show them exactly what's there. And then we go over to the nerve chart, and we show them how it affects the nerve chart, what the nerve system is for, how it affects the body. And then we come back and say, now look, if in fact we have a thing here called a subluxation that they never get, because when they walk out, their husband says, what did he say to you? And she says, he told me I have a submarine. And he says, well, we don't have any water. And they're confused, so you've got to get this thing communicated. Now, as a result of this thing being here, my job is to correct it. I'm going to show you how this stops something. My job is to correct it, and if I correct it, by correcting, by getting the bone off the nerve, letting the nerve heal up, letting maximum mental impulse or light from the brain into the tissue cell, this body can heal itself of the problems you came in with and many problems that you don't even know you have. And perhaps for once in your life, have a potential of life, potential of health that you haven't had for maybe 20 years. Does that sound like something you might want? They all say yes. But they said yes based on the fact, whether they understood it or not, they said yes, it's okay with them for us to correct the subluxation and not get into the treatment of symptoms. Now, why do I do that? When is the first time that your people leave you? When they feel better, which means they're what? Asymptomatic. When's the next time they leave you? Pardon? When they get mad. Why'd they get mad? What? Because they didn't get better. So you've got two problems here. You've got a catch-22. The guy comes in, he has symptoms. If the symptoms leave, he doesn't come back. He comes in, if the symptoms don't leave, he doesn't come back. He quits. So how do you keep him? What's our dilemma? Do you know what the average is? The ACA said the average length, case average, is 10 visits. That the average number of patient visits per week is 110. Somewhere along the line, I think we're missing a boat. I've got to think that we've got to keep people longer than 10 visits. I've got to think that we should be seeing more than 110 people a week. Otherwise, I'm living in a fantasy land. I see a lot of sick people. I see a lot of aberrated people. I see a lot of people that need chiropractic. And so you see, it reminds me of a guy. I live in Florida, so I was down on the end of a pier. And the guy was out here and he was catching fish. And he'd catch a little fish like this and he'd keep them. And he'd catch a great big fish like this and he'd throw them away. And I stood there and watched him throw away several large, nice fish. And he kept all the little tiny fish like this. So finally I asked him, I said, Mister, how come you're throwing all away the big fish? He says, because my skillet's only this big. Well, you see, we're running around as chiropractors with skillets about this big. We need to get bigger skillets. So I'm going to give you a bigger skillet today. I hope you can see it. I hope you can handle it. I hope, in a matter of fact, that you'll sit there and listen to what I say and not judge what I say. I hope for once that you'll sit there and say, listen, I never looked at it that way. Maybe I better. And don't sit out there picking apart what I say. Sit out there and listen to what I have to say. And don't resist. You see, every time I get on something hot, I see 4 or 5 people jump up and go to the bathroom. Well, those people always have to go to the bathroom when somebody's confronting them with something. Did you ever notice that? Confront somebody with something and they have to go to the bathroom, even if they just came out of the bathroom. It's not the bathroom. They're looking to get away from the thing. So now let's look at it. Let's look at what's going on. Let's just look for once at chiropractic as chiropractors, ignoring physiotherapy, ignoring nutrition, ignoring treating symptoms, ignoring being a medical doctor, ignoring being everything and anything other than I am here as a chiropractor, and I have decided I am going to do one thing and one thing only. If you want what I got, come on in. If you don't, go down the street. That's the position I have to take. Well, that's a position that we took and increased 750 visits in 1 month. And I will tell you now that it was a clinic master's practice. I felt like a member of the Temperance League. I won't tell you what I did, but I'll leave it up to your imagination. Now, we went into another office in the same area with the same tools, the same thing, and increased them 400 visits in 1 month. 400 visits, you see, that's an average practice. So now, what in the world did we do? Let's get on it. I'm going to need a couple people in a little while to come up here because we're going to catch this thing and nip it in the bud. My daughter always says, nip it in the butt. That's not really the way it is. In the bud. And so now here we are. Patients are coming in. We've advertised. We've done all the things we need to do. And we have, maybe 20, 30 new people coming in every week. That's healthy. That's wonderful. It makes you want to dance. It keeps you happy. And you can only do that if you have a purpose in mind. What are you going to do with those people? Are you going to bring them in and simply try to treat their symptoms? Are you bringing them in because there's a code for bringing them in? Or are you bringing them in because you have something in your mind that says, I've got to go out here and reach these people with something that nobody else is reaching, that I'm a separate, distinct individual, that nobody else is talking about what I'm talking about. Nobody else is delivering what I deliver. The hospital isn't, the medics aren't, the osteopaths aren't, the physiotherapists aren't. Nobody but me. That makes me special. I feel good about me because I am special. I feel good about me because I do something no one else does. And I do it with a lot of clarity. And so when people come in, what we're going to do is right up front in our courtship, we either get along or we don't. Now, I always advise people, if you only want your symptoms treated, I would advise you to go to the medical doctor. He can do it quicker than I. Nobody ever goes. So there must be something to that. So after we get that off of our chest and let him know what we're going to do, that by correcting the spine that we're going to allow increased life from the brain to the tissue cell, thus allowing that body to be able to replace itself normally, reversing disease processes within this thing called a body that perhaps could bring you back to normal health better than you've been in for years. Is that something you want? They always say yes. So now we examine them and we x-ray them. And after they've been x-rayed, they come back in. And why do they come back in? To find out if we're going to get married. Because you see, after courtship, we think about marriage. What is marriage? Marriage is you and I, we stop fooling around now. We start telling each other the truth. We're getting serious because we're going to spend the rest of our time together, aren't we? These folks just got married 2 weeks ago. You were missed yours. Stand up. Give them a hand. And listen, the wild thing is, he was supposed to go on his honeymoon to Hawaii, and he said no, he wanted to bring his new bride here and get her dipped. I tell you, that's wild. He's a heck of a chiropractor, you see. I already know that. Now, getting back to the marriage. When we come in, we put the x-rays up. In the old days, I used one x-ray. See, and I'd put the x-ray up and I'd say, this is you, Mrs. Jones, looking at you from the front. And then I'd turn the x-ray this way and say, this is a side view. Well, I stopped doing that now. Now I use 2 film. But actually, I use more than that. We're not talking about technique. Let's get down to what we're in. Here we are. I've got a guy out here. I'm going to marry him. I want you to come in as a patient on my grounds, not yours, and I want you to stay long enough for something wonderful to happen. I don't want you to come in and just get rid of your cricks, backaches, and strains. I want something beautiful to happen to your brain and to your body. How else are you going to get that other than a proper correction with a proper adjustment at the right place, at the right time, in the right direction? How are you going to get it? Well, you can't. So now I got to let you know that. So I'm going to put the x-rays up here. And before I get to the x-ray, I better run this through. For those of you that don't have pre-tapes, meaning tapes that you play before you have a consultation, and tapes that you play before you give an x-ray report, you should. You should buy some if they're in existence, or you should make up your own. They shouldn't be longer than 2.5 minutes for pre-consultation, 5 minutes for pre-x-ray. And they should be centered on exactly what you're after, because it removes a lot of problems. Now, we've got the x-ray up here. And so now all we're going to talk about, because we've already introduced this concept to them, is the subluxation. So, Mrs. Jones, here's the subluxation. It's the second bone in the neck. Or it's the third, or it's the fifth, or it's the fifth lumbar, whatever you find. That thing is shutting life off from the brain into the body. The body's not receiving maximum mental impulse, and as a result, the body's breaking down. Now, we've already described what a subluxation is, what it does on tape, before the person came in. So now, after we have these people up here and we're explaining to them, I want you to get something. If I can show them what a subluxation is, if I can show them what it does, if I can get them to get a mental picture, which is proper communication, and see themselves with a subluxation, and see what's happening to their body, and see what's going to happen to their body if they don't get it fixed. Because I don't mind telling you, everybody in here is going to have a new body next year. I want to know if it's going to be a better one or a worse one than you have now. If you have a subluxation, I'll guarantee you it's going to be a lesser potential than the one you have now. If we can correct the subluxation, I'll guarantee you that that potential of that body is going to be better. And so if I can get this person to get a picture of that, then our idea ultimately is when we finish that the patient says, "Oh, doc, you mean I'm not coming in how I feel? You mean to tell me there'll be days when I feel worse? You mean to tell me there'll be days when I don't have any symptoms at all?" That's right. But I'm not coming in for that. I'm coming in to get that bone lined up, to get that submarine fixed. That's right. We're going to get your submarine fixed, and you'll be able to float all over the place. But if we get this thing fixed and we get maximum life back into the body, then the body can heal itself of any disease known to man, and you're going to be set free. Is that all right with you? You betcha.
Hello. So, in this episode of SigTalks, we have a candid talk with Patricia Sigafoose herself. Not only discussing about this week's clip from 10 Hours with Sigafoose, but also why she thinks this was Dr. Sig's most famous audio series ever. So join us for a spell while we learn, laugh, and maybe cry. So it's my distinct pleasure to introduce my mother, who I will call Patsy throughout this conversation, if that's okay with you.
Yes.
And so here we go. So Mom, Patsy, I know you've listened to the audios probably more times than you even wanted to, but tell me, what did you get out of this clip?
Well, first of all, it was great hearing my Sig's voice. I really can't talk.
It's okay.
To this day, it always amazed me how he could own and love the philosophy and be able to just like spill it out like it's has always innately been his. And how truly he knew at a time in his life to attract that many people to our office.
Yeah. Did God do a lot of the orientations and spinal care classes himself? When
Mostly all of them, yeah. Well, he did do all of them. I followed him around and answered all the everyday questions that he didn't have to take his time and repeat over and over again. That's when a time in our office life that he said, "That's it, I'm making a video to educate them further." But he did all the doctor's talks. I called them doctor's talks to the patient.
Yeah. Is this the time when, during the orientation, that you would ask for referrals from the patient?
Not really. We would say to them, when you come back in to see your x-rays, bring your husband, wife, daughter, whoever you want to, or however many people you want to. That was our way of getting more new patients in the office, because once they would see and hear what we were doing, they wanted to become a patient.
Would you say that that's probably one of the best ways to grow your practice, like Dad said?
Well, of course, it's simple and easy. Handing out pamphlets to the patient and say, here, take this home and read it. And after you finish it, give it to whoever you would feel that should be here. Everybody needs to be here, but...
In this audio clip, Dr. Sigafoose says, you must get into chiropractic, and then he says how, and he talks about having consultations, or he called them a courtship, if you will. And during that piece, he also said that they will try to sell you on their symptoms, but you shouldn't let them. Why is that?
Because they didn't know any better, and they're medically oriented or all their life. And they're used to just taking a pill and the symptom go away until it becomes a crisis in their health. Then they knew they had to seek a different avenue.
Now, in it, he also says that if you let them tell you about their symptoms, that you're setting yourself up for failure. That it should be the CA's job to go over the symptoms and their history with them, not the doctor, so he doesn't get bogged down in that. Is that what you did with the patients?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we got all of that out of the way in the first 2 visits and never had to go back over that again with them. We made sure that our purpose in the office was to get to the cause of the problem, and what they came in for would be gone, plus a lot of other problems that they were having that they didn't mention to us.
So after the initial consultation, then you x-ray the patient. Dad says something about this courtship. The courtship is over. It's time to get married. That is the report of findings. And in the report, again, Dr. Sigafoose stresses that we never talk about symptoms. We simply tell them the story of the subluxation, and we show them their subluxation. And we have we address one thing and one thing only. That we will work towards the correction of their subluxation. And when that correction is made, did you guys lose a lot of patients at that point when their symptoms went away, or when their symptoms didn't go away, like he was saying?
Well, yeah, we would, they would drift off, but always come back and realize what we taught them in the first 2 visits, that some of them didn't care or didn't get. They realized that we were trying to take care of them for a lifetime and live a healthier life. Not that we told them that they would live longer because of chiropractic, but live a better life.
In that same clip we were listening to, Dr. Sigafoose talks about the importance of using patient education videos in the office. Do you think that this is just as important today as it was when this audio was recorded?
Definitely, because now you have another educator in your office, and you can continue on with taking care of your patients while they're being educated.
Yeah, so it's like you said, it's like having another doctor in the office with you.
Yes, and when we decided to make them, it was great for the chiropractors because not knowing or not thinking you had the ability to make your own, that's why we made them for other doctors. And that way you have 2 mentors in the office now, 2 doctors.
Okay, one last thing, and I know this might be hard for you to talk about, but what is the most important reason why you think keeping Dr. Sigafoose's teachings alive and around for future and current chiropractors?
Well, the sad thing is you go to chiropractic school, and as Dad always said, if they could just teach the philosophy and do, which isn't what you get in school, you come out confused and you don't know what you are going to do and how you're going to imply it for the rest of your life.
Do you still feel him around you every now and then?
Oh God, he's yes.
Okay, Patsy, thank you for joining us today on SigTalks, and don't be surprised if I ask you to come in again on the show if you enjoyed this. If you enjoyed this clip and you would like to have the entire series, 10 Hours with Sigafoose, they will be available for purchase and immediate digital download at sigafoose.com. If you would like to be informed as to when they will be available, just go to sigafoose.com. That's sigafoose.com. And in the space available on the welcome page, leave your name and email address, and we will notify you as soon as the site goes live. So until next week, keep the faith and tell someone you don't know about chiropractic today. Thank you, Patsy.
Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us today. If you're interested in more of Dr. Sigafoose's material, head on over for your daily dose of chiropractic philosophy to www.sigafoose.com and register for our free newsletter and to find today's audio clip of Dr. Sigafoose in its entirety. Remember to give, love, do, and serve.